Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by and for returning to the old world. Today, a slightly impromptu video and one not in the usual release structure or schedule, looking at whether now is a good time to start collecting a new army for Warhammer the Old World. Now obviously for those people who have seen some of my videos before, you'll know that I am actually collecting a new army for Warhammer the Old World. So it makes the question here seem redundant. However, I was inspired by a video I saw by another content creator, or Strike Back, who talked about his thoughts around this topic. And I thought I'd just like to expand out on a few of the factors I think form part of the decision-making process as to whether to get involved now or to leave it a little while. So, what are these factors? Fundamentally, I've identified 3 core factors. Now, there may be more. If you think there are, when you get to the end of the video, leave me a comment down below. So what do you think is an important factor? Well, what are these 3 that I've identified? Well, the first factor is the models and the debate of old versus new. The second factor is time. And the third factor is what do you want to get out of the game if and when it gets released? This then gives you various options which you may or may not want to pursue. Let's start with factor number 1, the models. Now this is something that goes to the core of War Strike Back, and he was saying he's anticipating for the army he wants to collect that there'll be some new shiny models from Games Workshop, and they're likely to be very nice models. Whether or not you agree with their aesthetic choices for some of their ranges, the new models are very detailed. They're really nicely made for models. They look good. So I can understand where he's coming from. Now, if you're looking to collect an army now, you're going to obviously be reliant on older models. And if you want to stick with Games Workshop as your figure producer of choice, then you need to also, of course, recognise that they don't sell complete ranges for Warhammer anymore. Sure, some of the old models can be obtained through the Age of Sigmar line. For example, Cities of Sigmar, you can get various flavours of elf, some dwarves, some humans, but you can't get the full ranges as they stood for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Which means to get those models you've got to be delving into the secondary market and picking up second-hand items, which you may or may not want to do. There's also the risk that whilst Games Workshop have said you'll be able to use your old models in Warhammer Old World, the newer models coming out, there might be a bit of scale creep. They might change the aesthetic slightly, so the models might look a little bit odd next to each other. I don't know that for certain, obviously, but it is a possibility. And there's also the thing of, if you're waiting on new models, are you going to actually see a lot of shiny new models, or will they be recreating old miniature lines that have been discontinued? Jury's obviously out very much on what we'll see because there's so little information being provided officially. And within the model debate, of course, yes, do you want to stick with Games Workshop? There's lots of people making fantasy models out there. You might like the aesthetic of one of those ranges, and as long as you're not planning on playing at a Games Workshop, well, a Warhammer store or a Games Workshop official event, then all of those ranges are open to you. And if you like one of them, then yeah, absolutely, you've got the models that you want available to you right now. Albeit, of course, we don't know what we'll be able to take for a legal army. What's the second factor? The second factor, time. How long does it take you to build a new army? Now, if you want to play the moment the game is released and be learning the game using full sized armies, Typically, in the past, they've been, what, 2,500, something like that in points. To do that, you need an army. Now, if you are one of the players returning to the game, you've got a Warhammer Fantasy army tucked away somewhere and you're just excited to be able to use it again, fantastic. This isn't a problem for you. This isn't really a factor because you've got something to use, whether or not you start building your army now. But if you're someone venturing into the Warhammer Fantasy hobby side for the first time, maybe you've got an Age of Sigmar army and you're intrigued by the idea of the old world. Maybe you got rid of all your models and you're thinking about coming back. Maybe you've had nothing to do with Warhammer before and you just want to give it a try. Now, there's probably going to be a box set when it gets released, if it gets released. So you might want to start there, and you might then want to build up one of those forces into a full force. And playing small games to start with, getting larger and larger as you learn the game. All absolutely fine. Your hobby, your choice. But if that's not what you want to do and you want to dive in with big armies, time becomes a significant factor. Now, you need to think about how long will it take me to be battle ready. If you're anything like me, in a typical month, I'll average for infantry, rank and file, I can probably paint 15 to 20 models in a month. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be less. But by my estimate, to get a force of 6 to 10 units, including characters and what have you, ready for the table, if I painted nothing but that project, it would probably take me 6 months to a year to turn an army out at 2,000 plus points. And again, for those of you who have seen some of my videos before, you'll know that I like to have a few projects on the go just to keep my painting life a bit interesting, so I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. Obviously, as I say, if you've got an existing army, this isn't so important. And if you've got a lot of spare time or you're a particularly quick painter, then again, time may be a smaller factor. But for me, if I want to play a big game, or certainly what will be a normal size game, as soon as the game drops and learn that way, then I need to have my force ready to go. And that means starting well in advance to get ready for the drop. This brings me on to the third factor. What are you actually looking to get out of Warhammer the Old World? Or what are you thinking you're going to want to get out of it? Now, we're entering into the spectrum where wargaming generally is a very broad church of people that get all kinds of different things and different combination of things out of their hobby. For the reason of simplicity, I'm going to break this down into 3 core groups. And again, fully appreciate that people will have their feet in a number of camps here, if not all of them, but I'm going to keep it as simple as I can. Group number 1, these people who are all about the collecting, the painting side of the hobby. This really comes back to an extent, it comes back to the models. Are you happy with the models that are out there at the moment? Do you want to hang on and see what's available when the game gets released? If you're happy with the figures that are out there, maybe you really like Wargames Foundry models, for example, and want to paint a force up using them. Great. Just having a project, collecting something up that you like, you're enjoying painting models, if that's your bag, then absolutely there is nothing to stop you making a start right now. In fact, you may never have stopped if that's the case. Second group of people I'm labelling as the more casual gamer, the beer and pretzels player, if you like. Now, obviously, it comes in back to we don't know what exactly will be legal under the new rules. But if you just want to play some games, then go nuts. You can start collecting now, because we do know what the core of the key armies will most likely look like. We know that dwarves are the ranks of dour infantry with great weapons or hand weapon and shield, backed by crossbowmen and artillery. We know that dark elf armies are likely to consist of spearmen, crossbowmen, monsters, have Cold One knights running around. They might not be the best, but they'll probably be legal. And you can absolutely, if you're just looking for some games, hedge your bets and think about building an army that might be consistent with the requirements of other rule sets that you like. You see Kings of War and Oathmark before you, so there's something you can be getting your teeth into before Warhammer the Old World drops, and then decide, actually, do you want to shift into the new system, or are you happy where you are? Then, of course, there's the third group. I say, of course. The third group, which is the hardcore tournament goer, the people that want to go to the big events and they want to win. Now, for these people, they obviously don't know what armies will be good under the new rules, what combination of units will be most effective. We won't know that until the game drops, or at least rumours and leaks start to occur. If your interest is to make an army that's designed to win major events, then realistically it's probably not that sensible to think about starting now, because sod's law, whatever you buy won't be what you need, because it'll be the wrong army or it'll be the wrong combination of units. So these kind of players are the people that probably want to go to hold their horses a little bit. So that kind of takes me really into what options are there. The obvious options are go for it, start collecting now. If the factors such as times are a thing, or you're happy with the model ranges out there right now, yeah, sure, go for it, your hobby. What do you want to spend the money and time on? The counter to that is clearly wait, see what happens. Do you get the new models that you like? Are you getting the army that plays the way you want to? Are you going to be able to do well at tournaments with a particular force? And if you're unsure of any of this, yeah, absolutely, hang on, see what happens. There is, however, a third way, and this comes back to the Always Strike Back video. And actually, I think this is quite a clever idea, and one that's certainly useful for certainly casual gamers and the collector painter types. What armies are you wanting to collect is a question. If you've got a couple of armies you like the look of, one was going to be your key army, one's a secondary, you're not as bothered about it, you just like to put one together, then you can think about starting with your secondary army now, because you're not that excited about the potential for new models, you're not that worried about if it's as effective on the tabletop. And by using existing models, existing ranges that are out there, you can build up a force ready to learn the new game, get some games in when it eventually releases, at which point in time you turn your attention to your main army. You know what the releases hopefully will be looking like. You can see the direction, the aesthetic, and that the meta is taking, and you can build up your main army then in order to perhaps be a bit more effective, get a better higher win rate, whatever it is that you want to do. So there is a third way, but I think there's more factors in play than just thinking really about the models themselves. I think time is an issue probably for quite a few people who want to do something new, and as I say, really what your intentions are around the game as well are also important. all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening to me drone on once more about Warhammer the Old World. Do let me know if there's any other factors, as I say. You can do so in the comments down below. Otherwise, have a great day. This is Return to the Old World, signing off.